Welcome back to another episode of Inside Voices, a teacher podcast by teachers for teachers. I'm your host, David.
And I'm Laura.
Today we've got a special episode. We're going to be interviewing a teacher podcaster. His podcast has over 6 million listens. It is the one and only Mr. P, or to give him his full title, ICT with Mr. P. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. This is such a big honour for us. I was actually chatting to my mum about this. This is quite an embarrassing story for her, but she has been a follower of yours genuinely. I don't know how many years, probably as long as you've been online. And she was chatting to me about it. She's like, I can't believe you're actually interviewing Mr. P. And I was like, yeah, we just messaged him, no problem. And she said, she was like, I've been paying him money for years and I don't know what I've been paying for. But she's one of those people that has subscriptions to everything, basically. She must have subscribed to something. She's like, I just support him so much that I just keep it going. I was like, okay, totally random. I've just kind of outed her.
I do have a website with loads of CPD ideas, so if she ever wants to dip in and you make most of that money, it's there. But no, thank you very much. Yeah,
shout out to mum there.
You're a teacher as well?
Yeah, so we're kind of, it's like family of teachers. She's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, I'm a teacher. But yeah, that's how kind of I got into teaching. We're going to obviously chat more about you. We want to know everything about you, basically, because we've seen you online. We've seen you for years. I've followed you for years on Facebook and things like that. But a lot of people might not actually know much about you apart from that kind of stuff. So we want to know everything about you. So first question I have for you, Mr. P, I'm just going to call you Lee from now on. The first question I've got for you is, what kind of inspired you to become a teacher? Because obviously we know you as this social media guy, but you're a teacher first. So what was it that led you into it?
Now, I'd love to be able to say, like, I've got this, it's sort of similar to you, like it ran in the family, didn't run in the family. It wasn't a case that I was, from the age of, starting school, that's all I ever aspired to be. I sort of fell into it, to be honest. So when I was younger, I was always into my sports, but I was always quite into acting as well. Did quite a lot of acting when I was younger. And then I wanted to pursue that initially, and went sort of auditioned for like uni courses around acting and didn't get on, and was just at a bit of a loss. And my girlfriend at the time in sixth form, she'd applied to be a primary school teacher and sort of said, well, why don't you come with me and have a look around the campus? And sort of went on this open day. I thought, yeah, this is all right, and then applied, and that was it. That was, and then got accepted, and that was, so there was no sort of, you hear these sort of stories of it being something I've always aspired. Don't get me wrong, I was very much influenced by some of the teachers I had when I was at school, and the impact they had on me very much sort of pushed me towards it. But it was never something I'd really sort of desired from a young age. It just sort of fell into it, and I went straight from sixth form into teacher training, and like my course at uni, it was 4 years, and I probably did about one, because I was that age where I was playing rugby for the uni rugby team. I was so sort of distracted with being a teenager still, that and I actually came very close to quitting. Actually, I was third year, I was in this school. I got my placement at this school, which was just sort of going through quite a lot of changes. So they'd had this head for like 25 years who just retired, who everyone loved. He was like old school. And then this new younger head teacher came in who had all different ideas and wanted them all implemented straight away. And I think she rubbed a lot of the staff up the wrong way. I had this deputy who was my mentor, who was still to this day probably one of the worst leaders I've ever come across. She was just awful. Within the first week of a 10-week placement, she turned around and said, you are not going to pass this. There's no way you're ever going to pass this placement. And I was like, I've got 10 weeks left, so thanks for that.
Proved her wrong.
And it was just fighting a losing battle. And my class teacher that I was with ended up getting pregnant, so she was distracted with that. The class that I was working with was a really, really challenging class. I remember one kid stuck with me because, like, what year was it? Year 3, so lots of work on times tables, and this kid just could not get his 3 times tables, but could recite every Cypress Hill lyric going. And I just thought, if you could channel that energy away from being insane in the membrane to
Yeah.
learning your theory to get somewhere. And I remember, got towards the end of the placement, the deputy head was like, "Look, we're not passing you." I'd had this horrible, horrible sort of term there, and really challenging. I remember sitting on my mum and dad's bed and saying to my mum, like, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I'm cut out for it." My mum said, "Tell you what, just speak to the uni, see if they'll do anything." And luckily, they sent someone out to me,
Yeah.
and sort of sat with me and just said, "Look, this school's just not for you. It's not for you at all. Let's get you in another school," which they did, and loved that. And then, yeah, the rest is history. But
And
it always sticks with me, that, because I get so many messages now from teachers who, are at that point where similar sort of story. The school's not right. It's a toxic environment. And they're very close to sort of thinking, is this for me? Should I leave? And my advice is always go and try a different school. Like, there's a school out there for everyone, and it just might take a little time till you find it. And a school isn't a reflection on you as a teacher necessarily, sort of thing. So yeah, and then and yeah, I got my job at Dave Hume. Been there ever since. Always felt a real part of the team. Always felt challenged. Always felt there was opportunities to sort of grow and learn and build. And I think if I was in 90% of other schools, they'd have never allowed me to go on to do what I've then done off
yeah.
the back of it all. So I'm always very thankful and grateful to the team there, and the staff and the leadership team. Which is funny because obviously I am quite outspoken, and people sometimes say, how do you get away with saying stuff about SLT and this and that? And I was like, well, it's not about my SLT, is it? Because
Yeah.
I won't be allowed to do this. It's the messages I get sent from all these teachers, and
Yeah.
it's not having a go at people individually. It's sort of the system, So yeah, so that's how I got into teaching initially. Yeah,
So
yeah,
did that experience you've had, obviously we see you as this person online, you're ultra confident, you have this huge following, we've seen you grow in that, like I remember the kind of early Facebook days and the videos and stuff that were coming out, and that's where a lot of your following has, I suppose we'll get onto this, but that's where a lot of your following has kind of been garnered, and you're this kind of person that people look to for advice and all this thing. Did that experience knock your confidence at all? Obviously, in that original school as a early student, did that take a while to get over, or?
yeah. I mean, yeah, and it stuck to me to this day. I still talk about it, and I think what it did. I mean, I could have gone completely the other way. I could have quite easily thrown the towel in there and sort of said, it's not for me. And I know there are probably thousands of teachers who have done a similar thing, and I don't begrudge them that, because it was really tough. I found it really, really hard. But I was lucky enough, like I said, I had supportive people around me. I was able to get good advice, realize that it wasn't me necessarily. It was more the environment I was in. And that's given me a really good perspective on things. And now I'm in a position where I do get to visit so many schools, and I see things, and I see sort of how, schools are so universal in lots of ways, but are so different in lots of other ways, and sometimes you might find yourself in a school where you've not got that support network, you don't feel as valued or appreciated, and that's not necessarily a reflection on you as a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's important that, before you decide to leave the whole profession, go to another school, give it a go, try it out, go try it out there, because, the right school is out there for everyone, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've mentioned there briefly about how you've been able to sort of build, because you had such a supportive network around you, you've been able to build that amazing online presence that you obviously have now, which is absolutely, it's phenomenal. It is. It's a great following, and you've done
Jealous.
you've done brilliant things, brilliant things with it that, kind of full circle moment for us as well. Like David said, it's we sort of watched you when we were doing teacher training, and we've watched your videos for years. So this is a bit of a full circle moment for us as well. But what sort of inspired you to pursue the online aspect of teaching?
So yeah, so what sort of kicked it off was having the kids. So I got married in 2010, found out we were pregnant, and we ended up having triplets, which just completely changed everything in an instant. And we already had so I've got a stepson as well, so he's 20 now. So I had the stepson, and then we went straight into having kids and ended up with 3 in one go, which was it was funny. I mean, I love it. I love them. I think there's so many positives to having multiples. It is tough, it's hard, but straight away it changed my outlook, and it was sort of like, right, you've got to provide now. You've got to look at ways in which you can pay for 3 lots of nappies and 3 lots of wet wipes and all that sort of stuff. So
On a teacher's salary.
exactly. So I was probably going to head into sort of leadership and management eventually anyway. Just that sort of give me a bit of a boost to say, right, let's start. And my head teacher's always been great in supporting people. He's always been incredibly fair with me in that, you know, if you put the work in, you know, if you graft, he'll always be accommodating and you know, help you out as much as possible. So he sort of said to me, and at the end of the first year of the trips being here, I don't know whether it was him trying to be supportive or whether he's just seen me in class like a zombie for a year. He sort of said, look, we think it'd be best if we bring you out of class and you can cover PPA across the school. And I want you to focus on developing your subject area, because I think that'll give you a really good experience of leading a subject across the whole school. You're teaching in EYFS right up to year 6. And, you know, when you apply for jobs for assistant deputy head, that's going to look really, really good. Yeah. I was like, yeah, brilliant. And my subject was computing, or ICT, as it was back then. And I got that just purely from making a video in my NQT year of year 6. You know, the year 6 leavers assembly. Yeah, it's P7 where you are, isn't it?
Yeah.
So year 6 leavers assembly, I made a video of their time through school set to the soundtrack of Green Day, Time of Your Life, and the head teacher was like, "This is incredible, amazing. This is Oscar worthy. You need to be ICT subject lead," and that was it. And I think I love ICT as a subject to lead. I think it's brilliant, mainly because I just love the fact I'm treated like a superhero every time I turn the plug socket on and off.
You do one iMovie transition and it's like, whoa, yeah. Change the world.
And so it was at that point, and I said, right, I'd love to do that, but I need some decent kit. Yeah. And at the time, I think we had like a suite of PCs that were running Windows 95, and half of them didn't work, and it was like, I'm not doing another six-week project on flipping word art. Yeah, trying to get children to make a title curve and a semicircle. I was like, there's other stuff we can do. So we invested in a class set of iPads, and my job was then looking at how these tools could support and enhance learning across the curriculum, right from EYFS to year 6.
And so, sorry to butt in, Lee, but what year was that in? What year did you do that?
That would have been 2012, 13.
So that's quite. Am I wrong here? That's quite revolutionary getting iPads back then. Like I don't remember them coming in until.
Yeah, they were there. They were just emerging really. They were sort of they were there. I think they started like early or late 2000s. I think when they first came out. I could be wrong, but we'd had training on the day where I went on to paternity leave. We had an inset day with Alan Pete, and Alan Pete did this training day that just completely changed my outlook on teaching writing. Like, the guy is an absolute genius. He's incredible. And he had an iPad and he was showing different bits. And that moment was where I was like, oh, we need some of them. We need them. And then obviously a year later, we get a set of iPads, and then the academic year after that is where I'm leading it across the school. So it was right at the beginning of a lot of schools going into that journey, and I immediately saw the impact, how it was sort of not just engaging children, but it was just sort of revolutionising. It was just making so much learning sort of empowering and relevant for children. The only problem was everything that we were doing, I couldn't stick it in a book. And that was the mentality back then. It's like everything's got to be in a book, which, you know, mentality for a lot of schools now, really. So I thought, where's a place where I can put all this work that we could sort of showcase it, evidence it, and so started a school blog, and was just using that as a way of uploading any work the children were doing, sharing that on the likes of Twitter, and then we're getting lots of tweets saying, "Oh, this is amazing! How did you do it?" So then I decided to start my own teacher blog, where I do sort of blog posts, step-by-step tutorials on what was being posted on the school blog. and then obviously started the school my Mr. P Twitter account, and then started the Facebook page. And yeah, it sort of grew from there. So alongside the sort of useful tips and resources and that sort of thing, started dabbling with, making funny little videos, and it's just quite funny that I was thinking about this before when you said about Facebook. So the sort of revolution in my, best part of 10 years of doing this now is the revolution in what type of videos are the ones that go big. So when I first started, it was like the little memes. It was like the little 5-10 second
Yeah.
meme clips. And then Facebook were like, no, we need you to make videos that were over 3 minutes long. Like that was the only way you were going to get any sort of reach. And I remember sitting there writing and just adding stuff in. And that was like the only way you'd get it, out to followers. And then all that changed where organic growth sort of died on Facebook, and it was like you have to pay for it. And I never wanted to do that. And then obviously TikTok came along and just completely changed everything, and it's gone right back to sort of short form videos. Although now TikTok are like,
TikTok have done the same, haven't they?
Rather it be a minute longer than a minute. So it's quite funny how it sort of peaks and troughs through certain things. And then, obviously at the end of that academic year doing the iPads, I was getting asked to do training and CPD sessions. And then Alan Pete actually got in touch with me and said, look, you've been recommended to us as a potential trainer. Could we come and watch one of your sessions? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so his wife, Julie, came watch one of the sessions, and she was like, look, we'd love to work with you. And what I loved about them, and what I'm always grateful to them to my dying day, is what they could have done is they could have gone, right, we want you to work for us, and we're going to get you to do the training under Alan Pete Limited. And, whereas they said, look, we want you to set yourself up as a business and we'll work alongside you.
That's really cool.
We can do things, because I'd had a few offers to do other things, and luckily I always ran it past them, and they were like, no, they'd always read the small print, and so I'd see these opportunities. Like there's one company that wanted me to write a resource, and it was something like they were going to pay me. I think they were going to pay me a few £100, which at the time I was like, this is amazing. But then they were actually selling the resource for double that.
That's
and
shocking.
they were like, look, if they sell X amount of copies of your hard work, and that's what made me sort of think, actually, yeah, there's quite a few sort of chances who are going to try and take advantage, whereas they were always really, really fair and gave me and my wife so much guidance at the beginning, as far as setting up the company and doing everything right. And he's retired now and he's enjoying his well-deserved retirement, but I'm always grateful to him and his wife Julie for all their support in those early days.
And I think you need that, don't you? You need someone to guide you through something new. Like we've obviously started doing this podcast, we've started doing a bit of social media and stuff, and the amount of people we've reached out to just for advice and just for guidance is absolutely invaluable. I mean, it's a whole new world to us, and it would have been to you at the same when you were doing it as well, that you're starting out in something that you have not a clue about, even setting up a business and stuff like that. As a teacher, you've got a wide set of skills, but it's quite limited as well.
Yeah, it's so eye-opening, because it's something that I still don't understand half of it now. You know what I mean?
That's reassuring.
Yeah, fills us with hope.
Yeah, all the sort of tax and all that sort of self-employed stuff, I'm like, I'll leave that to my wife. I can't. There's only so much I can sort of, I can teach a lesson on multiplying fractions, but as far as working out what the tax bill is, I'll leave it to my wife. But it is, and you do need those people around you, and that's where again I'm very thankful to have like my wife. My wife's incredible. She's just, the thing that people probably don't see is in those early days, I was obviously teaching 9 to, well, it's not 9, is it?
9 till 3.
Yeah, I was gonna be that person then on TikTok.
All those holidays as well.
How hard can it be? Yeah. Get all those holidays. No, so I was at 7 till 6 usually. I'd come home, put the kids to bed, and then I'd be on my computer till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, just blogging, because I was like, there's something to this. I can see something, and the feedback I was getting from people who were clearly finding the ideas useful, which motivated me to do it more. My wife could have quite easily turned around and been like, right, that's enough, Lee. stop it,
Yeah.
and you're not putting your priorities in the right place. But she was always really supportive. And obviously when I started doing some of the training, and a lot of it initially was just turning up to places and doing 5 minutes at a teach meet, and again going missing for the evening or on a Saturday just to try and get used to speaking and getting in places. And she was always really supportive. And it is hard because we had the three toddlers, and they she's just been incredible at being able to take on that role to allow me to then do all the other stuff. So I think it is really important to have people on your side who sort of see how much it means to you. She recognizes I really enjoy it,
Yeah.
very passionate about it, and having that support just makes such a difference.
And how would you, like, obviously spoken about your wife, she's a big support, and that's amazing to have that. But and you're doing something that is like in those early days, you're up till midnight on the laptop or whatever. You're doing something not every teacher's doing, but at the same time, teaching is a job that can take over your life if you let it.
Yeah.
Like we've both experienced that, haven't we? When you've had a pile of marking to do, or you've had so much paperwork or whatever, and it takes over your life. How have you managed that kind of balance between having this teaching going on, but obviously in the early days it was crazy? How have you kind of in your life managed to balance it all?
I don't know. I don't know if I have always had the right balance. Probably not, to be fair. And again, that's social media for you. I probably appear like I've always got the balance right, but I don't think I always do. And there's times where, I do get lost in the work and I have to take stock a little bit. And, I've got a to-do list where I'm never getting near the end of it. So I'm learning all the time of how to best prioritize, but I don't think I ever get it right all of the time. But it's tough. Like teaching is, it's a job that it's hard because you'll never get to the end of that to-do list. And I think one thing that I've come to learn is that you've got to learn to sort of say no, and you've got to prioritize. And I think when I became a parent, that was probably the moment that changed my perspective a lot in a lot of ways. That's not me saying that I suddenly became a better teacher, but it makes you take stock of what's the most important use of your time when your time is so precious, because you've then got to be present for other, do you know what I mean?
Triplets, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
quite a unique situation.
Yeah. So I think that first, and then from them being born, and I'm like, do I need to sit here for 3 hours and mark this when I know my kids can't read it? And it's like, well, no, no. And it's like, right, well, I'll speak to the class tomorrow and just talk them through it, and that'll be just as good. And so it makes you take stock, and then you start asking questions, because, education should be the best job in the world. Unfortunately, our current system doesn't always make it that way. And because there's that sort of obsession with accountability and constantly proving that we're doing the job most of us are capable of doing, that fear-driven system can sometimes make us lose a bit of common sense. If that makes, with certain tasks we're expected to do.
Yeah.
So like marking, I talk all the time about, I do a thing on my training where I get people to share what are the tasks you do as a teacher that takes up most of your time. And marking still now in 2023 will come out as the top one. And I'll always just make the joke and go, well, you know how you can solve that? Just don't mark. And everyone's like, haha. And I'm like, well, no, seriously. Every teacher on this planet knows the best form of feedback is oral verbal feedback.
Yeah, one-to-one.
Just do that. Just do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to change the habit of a lifetime, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just what I keep trying to tell people now is that teachers are the best resource in the classroom. And it doesn't matter what, if you're working 50, 60 hours a week, which a lot of teachers are, I think 57 is the average at the minute.
That's
going
crazy.
to have an impact on your energy levels, and you will not be the best teacher you can possibly be. And it's really important to take time to switch off and have something going on in your life outside of teaching so that you can recharge and be the best possible teacher. And I made a video about this over the summer when, as amazing as social media is, it's great. There's this, one of my golden rules of life that I tell my kids and I tell people all the time is that comparison is the thief of joy. And what what's great about social media is you've got some amazing teachers sharing some great ideas, some great resources. Like some of the stuff you share is brilliant. It's fantastic. And it's there to be taken and used wherever you see appropriate. But I don't think it's healthy to then watch these videos and be like, I'm not as good as that. I'm not as good as that teacher. Well, I'm, like displays over summer.
Yeah.
Teachers want to spend their whole summer doing their displays. It's like, crack on.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily make them a better teacher than someone who's sitting there binging a Netflix series, going out
and relaxing.
and just relaxing. And so it's that idea of don't compare yourself to what you see online, because what you're seeing is what someone's choosing to share. And I say this all the time. People will put me on a pedestal as far as being an amazing teacher, this incredible teacher. And I'm like, well, I'm not. You just don't see the crap lessons I teach, do you?
Yeah.
See me on TikTok, like, guys, let me talk you through this absolutely dreadful lesson I taught. No one does that. You share the good bit. And so it's understanding that, but you can apply that outside of teaching. We do it with everything, don't we? Our Instagram feeds are filled with the 1% of people who have an absolutely ripped body. And then we're like, oh my God, I'll put these Krispy Kremes down. But it's such a small fraction of real life. So it's understanding. And that's what I try and teach the kids as well. So I do quite a lot of work around obviously online safety, internet safety. And that's one of the biggest teaching points is what you see online isn't the full picture.
Yeah, it's so important. So important.
So important.
I think that with teacher sort of social media, especially, I mean, we've spoken to a couple of people who've said it's not really anything they ever thought they would be delving into. It's not really something that they never thought they would be speaking to teachers who are on social media about certain, products or anything that they're sort of promoting. I think it's one of those unique situations where people don't really expect teachers to have social media ever. So have you found that to be like a sort of maybe more so in the earlier days, a kind of challenge of the social media side of things that people are sort of taken aback that a teacher's on their For You page?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think when I started, I was, it wasn't really, I was probably one of the first, I think I did it right at the beginning. There wasn't really anyone else.
He's a pioneer.
I wouldn't, but yeah, there wasn't many around. I mean, I think blogging was obviously a big thing, but I don't think there was many people sort of putting themselves on camera, because that technology had only started really emerging when I started doing it, to be honest, where the camera quality were getting better and more of the visual side of, social media was appearing. So, Facebook was more pushing the videos and trying to get, because YouTube's never been a platform that I've focused on too much, because it's like I'm too old for YouTube, like back to kids. But Facebook very much went, right, we need to take on YouTube, so we're going to push video content, and then that's what really focused me down that route. But I think this I've obviously touched upon a couple of potential negatives there about comparing yourself, but it's so helpful to have people on a platform sharing experiences. And I think back to my uni days, I would have absolutely loved, during that nightmare placement when I had, apart from my mum who was great, if I'd have had a community on social media to sort of go in and say, look, I'm really struggling, I don't, and have someone say, this isn't you, it's the school, reach out to you, that would have made me feel so much better. And that's what I say to students all the time. Whenever I'm doing any work with sort of younger, newer teachers, I sort of say, use social media to your benefit. Don't compare yourself, but use it to connect yourself. You've got a wealth of amazing educators out there. And the thing is with teachers, we are so compassionate, and, teaching is not, it's a team sport, even though with league tables and stuff like that, it's tried to make us combative against each other. But actually, we're so willing to help each other. Having those people who you can reach out to and sort of get inspiration from, just get a bit of support, or, with some eyes, just have a bit of a giggle. And the messages I love receiving is getting messages off teachers saying, I've had a dreadful day in school, like I'm at my wit's end with my class, behaviour-wise, this, that, and the other. But I've just sat down, watched your video, and I've just thought, God, I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of feedback and those sort of messages that really motivates me to continue to do what I'm doing, because it can be the best job in the world, but it can be so full on and hard and tough. And so having certain people in the profession who are talking and sharing their experience, I think is overall a really, really good thing. Obviously, I've had a few occasions where there's been a bit of a bite back, but I try and just I follow certain rules, so I don't tend to swear.
This could be really helpful for us. I'm getting a notepad out.
I don't tend to swear, right? I will be outspoken in certain ways, but it's I think it's sort of justified given the situation.
You're punching up though, aren't you? You're kind of
yeah. It's that sort of thing. It's always punching up. It's never speaking out about children. It's understanding your GDPR and the struggles, never naming specific children and that sort of thing. And just having a bit of common sense with it, really. Just having it, and I know not everyone's gonna agree with what I'm saying, but I like to think that I come from a viewpoint of, here's a teacher who wants to improve the system and is speaking out about improving the. It's not. You might agree, disagree, but just understand I'm coming from the viewpoint of someone who cares, who wants to try and help teachers sort of get a better work-life balance, help teachers stay in the profession, and that sort of thing. So it's been amazing to see how it's all sort of grown over the past sort of decade, and teachers are incredibly creative. And so having people use these platforms in creative ways is great, is wonderful, and I get inspiration day in day out with the stuff that I watch, and I'll talk about on my train at the minute. Best form of CPD for me at the minute, the best platform for my CPD is TikTok. Right? Yeah. And everyone looks at me like what are you talking about? It's like, well, you've just got to control the algorithm and not let the algorithm control you. So if I'm looking for new ideas for tech apps or tech, then I'll go into TikTok, search it, watch a couple, and that just tricks the algorithm to say, right, this is what it wants to see. So it floods your news feed. So when I do my training at the minute, I normally spend the first hour and I'll just list off about 10 websites, really useful websites for the classroom. And I'll say, oh, by the way, I got most of them off TikTok. And seeing other people share them. But then any parents listening to this is my little hack with my kids. So my kid's 13 now, and I started going on social media, the 12 going on 13, and I've resisted it as much as possible. Like, as much as I love technology, I've always been really strict with the kids. Like, they've never not had access to it, but it's always been time limited. They didn't have their own device until they were starting secondary school.
I think when you know more about it, you know more about the dangers as well, don't you?
Yeah. So it's always talking to them about it, So Harry has access to TikTok for an hour a day. And the trade-off is you've got an hour a day and I will check what you're looking at because you're not old enough to be on there. If you want to go on, I will look at what that I then do is when I do my nightly checks is I just go into his TikTok and search for stuff that I want him to be watching. So
That's such a good idea.
Like rugby skills, and I'll watch a couple, and I'll go on to like books and school related useful tips and
how to pass exams.
Yeah. Next time he goes on TikTok, his For You page is just flooded with the stuff that I want him watching.
Or you just put your content on there, Mr. P.
Oh, no, he hates my stuff. He hates it.
That's so funny. So obviously you're speaking about being a parent there with social media, big dangers and everything, but you yourself are on multiple platforms. You're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, which I'm not on, and I had to get off Twitter.
X.
Yeah, X. You're on Instagram, TikTok, the whole thing. What would you say is, number one, your favorite one to be on as a creator? Like, what is the one that gives you the most kind of feedback and most drive to your audience? And what is the one that has changed the way you do things in a big way? Obviously, you've got your podcast and everything as well, but
so I mean, I'll always be. Facebook was the one that really took off for me, and that's where I've got my biggest following. It is on Facebook. So, without Facebook, I'd have never built up the sort of following I've got. But there's parts, what really annoyed me with Facebook was there was a time where you'd put a video out there, and every one of your followers would see it, And then all of a sudden overnight, they just changed it all and was like, no, there's no organic reach anymore unless someone requests to see your videos. So the actual growth just died overnight on Facebook. And I know they're changing it slightly, but that really frustrated me. TikTok, I find the most creative. I mean, I love TikTok, but it's also one of them where you can just lose an hour without even realizing. And
try 3,
especially in the holidays.
It's very, very addictive, isn't it? But I mean, it is. I love the creativity. Like I say, I love the way people are using it in different ways, and so that's definitely one that's changed the way in which I make videos, I suppose, over the past few years. And so
this really interests me because obviously we post on TikTok, and this might not be the most niche. This might be a bit more niche for teachers listening, but it's still really interesting. That I want to know your strategy, because you post all the time. Like you post like 4 a day or something? Is that?
Yeah.
So what is your strategy behind that? For maybe like this might actually help if any teachers want to get into TikTok or a little bit of influencing like we've done in a smaller scale than you. You get told different things, don't you? You get told, post at this certain time, or you post 4 a day or whatever. What is the thinking behind that?
If it's term time, I don't post during the day.
Right, okay.
So it probably looks like I post a lot because it'll be in a short window.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like from 5 till 9 or 5 till 10. A lot of it's reshared. So a lot of, I've got, there's a back catalogue. And obviously certain things stand the test of time. So in fact, I posted something just the other day that I made like 2 years ago. It was about being a teacher on a playground duty. Being a teacher on playground duty. And a kid sort of you're trying to deal with a medical issue. And then a child's like, let me show you this. And then you go, right, okay. And they just sort of do that. And you're like, right, that's brilliant. So I made that a couple of years ago, reposted it, and then it just went bigger than it did 2 years ago. So I don't understand it at all, but and most of it's not new. I'd say maybe each week there's probably 3 to 5 new bits of content, and then a lot of it will be reshared because a lot of the platforms don't share everything to every single one of your followers.
So frustrating. Yeah. Like we cannot work it out for the life of us.
Because sometimes I post a video that took me like 2 minutes to make and it does really well. And then the video I've like really worked on, it's taken me hours. It's got voiceover, good transitions, and 20 views. You're like, great. Yeah.
That's where TikTok becomes addictive because you can't work it out. And it's like you make a video using a sound and it gets like 200, and then someone does pretty much the same thing and it goes like 200,000, and you're just like, how is that fair? I did it first, But you take the rough with the smooth with it sometimes. But it's just a bit of a gamble. And sometimes, like I did one last week, and I was like, this is going to be brilliant. This is it was. And to be fair, I'd got inspiration from someone else, and I tagged him in the comments. And it was like, if a teacher's iPhone apps could talk.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
And I was like, this will go, and it just didn't. Just sort of like did all right. Just didn't do anywhere near as well. But what's also interesting is how different platforms react to different content. Totally. So something that goes down really well on TikTok can sometimes get nothing on Facebook, and something that doesn't do well on TikTok will blow up on Instagram. And I'd love to sit here and say, the strategy is, guys, I literally do not know. I do not know. I find Instagram quite a nice platform at the minute. I'd say Instagram's probably the nicest platform.
In terms of user interaction or in terms of views?
Like the least negativity.
Yeah. Sometimes you do get quite a bit of, I think on TikTok, because it's such a quick, you just scroll on to the next one. People think, I'll just leave that comment and get on with my next few videos. And obviously, I feel like when it's Facebook and Instagram, I feel like it's more personal. You've got your Facebook name, and that is who you. It's like your real identity almost. And then TikTok can be a bit of a. Sometimes you post a video, and I'm like, why is somebody giving me hate on this? I thought this was just a funny little video. Just scroll on by, and then you read the comment, and we're still kind of at the early stages. I probably take it more personally than you do.
You get into scraps.
But I'm like, oh, please don't be mean to me.
You know what? I must say, I really struggle with it. That's the one side of social media that I really don't like, is that we have this mentality that people think they can say the most hurtful, negative things and just have no thought about the impact it can have on the person receiving it. I just find it incredible that we live in a world where that's seen as okay to do. Like, you can just throw as much hate and nastiness towards someone whose sole intention, like, I get it, sometimes I can be a little bit political, but they're for videos that never get any negativity. But if I make a video about, like, oh, you know, can't wait till half term, and then someone will be like, well, quit your job then, you're clearly not good at what you're doing, and all you have to do is moan about, and it's like, no, whoa, you know, and the messages I've had over the years, like the amount of messages, it really annoys me that if you're going to go down this route of putting yourself out there on social media, who's, for me, no other reason than to just, you know, bring a bit of joy, you know, a bit of laugh, a bit of a giggle, a bit of help and support with the tech stuff, that you've got to accept that you'll have people sending you messages. And the worst one was when I used to do quite a few videos with my daughter, and there was quite a few, not loads, but there's a couple of negative messages about her, and that was the one where I really struggled with it. So it is. I find that really hard to deal with, because I just think, well, but you can't. The problem is you can't reply to him.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you engage with him, you lose.
I think sometimes as well, I find it, like you're saying, the online side of that is hard, but I find sometimes in person, not that we've had backlash in person, you know, that's been awful, but sometimes I feel like people maybe question. I mean, when we first started, I had a TikTok, and then yours kind of blew up one video, and I deleted it because I totally panicked. Like I was like, I don't think I want people to know that this little hobby I've got, I'm doing. I don't know what I expected. Like, I knew people would find it, but I panicked and I deleted my TikTok, and I kind of wish I didn't, because you kept yours and yours just kept growing, but I kind of went, whoa, I'm not doing this anymore. And again,
in what respect? Just sort of,
I think it was, I don't know if it was embarrassment or more, I didn't want people to think, we've not been teaching that long. And I think sometimes you get people who say, well, you've only been teaching for 5 years, so who are you to go into social media and give people advice? And not that we've had anybody, you know, our SLT are very supportive, and we've been really fortunate in that aspect, but I don't want to not rub people up the wrong way, but I don't want people to think that I'm telling them what to do, sitting here as someone who's got, you know, a quarter of the experience that they have. But it's not that. I guess it's just a new kind of perspective on things. You know, I've mentored students, so someone out there thinks that what I have to say is, you know, useful and helpful, and I think it's just trusting that rather than being worried about what people that you know or who know you in real life think and online think, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, you're right. And ultimately for me, what I've learned is that, like, you know, it's just, if it's something you enjoy doing, like I don't look at numbers really. I think I went through a period where I was like, I've got to get as many followers as possible.
Oh, I'm obsessed.
And you just realize, well, no, actually what you've got, because then you just end up becoming, you lose, I think, a bit of authenticity. Like, it can appear like you can be sort of desperate sometimes, and it's like, oh, you know, whereas I just think, right, I like doing this. I find it quite fun. I find it's sort of a hobby for me, you know. So when people say, how do you find the time? It's like, social media for me is a hobby. You know, if I'm traveling, like I've got to travel after this down to London for a training day tomorrow, I'll probably set off at about 2, get to my hotel for 7, 8. I'm there for a couple of hours. I might as well make a few funny videos, you know, that pass the time that way. So that's how I see it. And as long as I'm still enjoying it, I don't then worry about the, you know, and I always think people, if they don't like you, just don't follow, just scroll past.
Yeah.
Just hold your finger down and say, I don't want to see this. You know, I don't unfortunately, 1 or 2 will turn around and say, I think you're this, that, and the other. And I'm slowly getting to a point where I'm like, oh, well, you know, you can't please everyone. You know,
and
that's
extra comments in the in the comment section always drive a little bit of engagement.
Keep boosting my stats, that's fine.
So obviously you've got a kind of crazy schedule going on there. You're down to London, you're all over the place with this tour coming up, and I'll let you speak with the tour. We came to your tour and your comedy show. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. We were sitting up the back, cackling away, the two of us.
Yeah. Adam's dancing at the end, just really.
Oh my goodness.
He's really tipped it.
Did you know he was going to do that?
Not to that extent.
Because you could see in your eyes, you were standing there like, we should be off the stage now. And he was just going and going. It's hilarious.
The thing is, the worst thing was doing it in Glasgow where that would have been encouraged.
Ultimate encouragement. Everyone's giving it big ones. Yeah.
I mean, whether other crowds are going to react the same way, only time will tell. That's
he only gets an 8-beat next show.
Yeah.
So how did you fall into that? Like, how did that come about? Like, that's a major difference from social media. It's a major difference from training. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah. So, I mean, my training, the way I do my training is I always make sure that teachers leave my training with at least a handful of useful tools that they can take back into class and implement straight away. That is always at the heart. But if I can do that in a bit more of a light-hearted and sort of funny way, it tends to make the day a little bit more enjoyable. I've sat through some staff meetings, some insets, and it's like, oh, you're counting down the minute it's just done. And I think,
and you're wondering how much they're getting paid for it as well.
I mean, once we were in a training day. I won't name the guy, but we had a training day where he brought his wife and spent like 10 minutes just dancing with his wife in front of that, like doing some ballroom dancing in front of the whole staff. And we were sort of going, have we paid? And then when we found out what he charged, some awful Strictly impression, it was just, I'm like, no. Look, you've brought me in. I'm gonna try and help as much as possible, give you as many ideas, strategies, and things you can take. But I'll also do it in a bit more of a humorous and sort of funny way.
Yeah.
Which seems to go down well, and and obviously we started the podcast in 2018. My brother is a HLTA in a school. He is hilarious. Really.
What's a HLTA? Is that an English thing?
Like a higher level teaching assistant.
Okay.
So he's not a teacher?
No, he's not a teacher. No.
I didn't know that.
Well, he sort of covers class. So it's sort of like HLTAs, you can teach, you're just not on the same amount of money.
Yeah.
I don't think we don't have that up here.
No, we don't have an equivalent of that.
No, I've never heard of that in my life.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
So there's like sort of different levels to it, and then the HLTA means you've got more responsibility, a little bit more money, and cover PPA and that sort of thing.
Cool.
So he's hilarious. I mean, he's hard work, but he's hilarious. And we started the podcast, and it just blew up. Like and again, I think having my platform and having that instant audience to begin with was brilliant, and really helped it sort of propel it straight away. And then it's just sort of grown from there. And I think during the pandemic, it really helped a lot of people. I think that's where it really sort of gained a lot of traction, because we were all working in our bubbles. We weren't sat in the staff room chatting, and so it sort of gave people that escape and a little bit of that community of being with other teachers, which was quite funny really, because it was me and Adam sat in his garden, socially distant, and we were just recording these like 2.5-hour episodes because we had nothing else to do. And
but you know what? Why not? Like, that is amazing.
Yeah, it just went mad. So we'd actually done a live show before the pandemic. We'd done a couple, because obviously with all the traveling I do, I listen to loads of podcasts and saw that a couple were starting to do live shows, and I just thought,
why not?
You only miss the shots you don't take, I suppose. Is that the right saying?
Yeah, I think
that's 100% of the chances you don't take.
That's actually a hockey quote.
Yeah, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take.
100% a football quote.
I'm pretty sure it's Wingate's.
Also, I like the fact that you're a Manchester United fan. I am the same. And that could be a whole nother podcast episode.
Yeah. So we did a couple of shows before, and then I remember the day of announcing the pandemic. So when Boris came on and sort of said we're closing schools, I was due to meet the guy from Phil McIntyre, who were the tour sort of promoters.
Okay. And
then that all got cancelled and just put on the back burner. And then eventually they got back in touch and said, look, we'd love to do a run of shows with you. So we put those dates in, and then they just kept adding more and more shows, and it just went down really well. And I think, obviously, coming out of the pandemic, when teachers weren't sat on the backsides doing nothing, they were all in school working, but doing it sort of isolated, they were all ready for a bit of an escape.
Yeah.
And I think that first podcast tour really sort of came at the right time for a lot of teachers. And like we were saying before, I think a lot of teachers use it as a bit of a, well, you saw on Sunday, some of them were going,
Oh my goodness.
Oh, weren't they?
Yeah, it was crazy.
It wasn't one of those jugs of cocktails to share. It was a jug of cocktail for one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's funny down the front. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got this new tour happening next couple of weeks, and
so what dates have you got coming up? Where are you next?
So we're in Leicester on Saturday. We've got like a 2-week run, so it's like Leicester, Bournemouth, Brighton, London, Norwich, Guildford, Sheffield, Cardiff, Liverpool, Newcastle, Birmingham, show in Manchester, and then Bradford and Northampton.
My goodness, you're all over the place.
And we can highly recommend, so if you take what we have to say for a good bit of value, you know, we would definitely recommend it. It was exactly what you said. It was good to have that kind of, it's very unique teaching, and have that funny side of it. It's nice to have a laugh with all the people in the room.
Even the amount of times we turned to each other and went, oh yeah, that is us. yeah, we did that.
And we can't take the credit for it all, because the success of the podcast comes from everyone sharing the stories, and
some of those stories were wild.
Yeah, they were.
But I think for a lot of people outside of teaching, you just don't realise some of the stuff that goes on. And yeah, we just find it so funny when we get sent some story, you know. You just think, no, that's clearly not. Like, we've got one. I can't tell you, because
don't spoil it. No spoilers.
I'll tell you off one we've been sent. I'll read it to you. I can't say it on record, because then it'll ruin it during the show.
Okay.
I'll show you, and I can't get my head around. I'm like, surely that's not real.
So if you want to hear this story, you need to go and listen. You need to go to the show.
You need to go to the show.
Yeah, you need to come to the shows, yeah.
And I'm guessing, is there tickets still available, or is it sold out anywhere, or is it?
Sold out in Manchester, which was... so Manchester actually is the smallest venue we're playing.
Right, okay.
The hometown show, which was a bit frustrating. We'd have loved to have been in a bigger room. So that one's sold out. I think the Birmingham one's very close to selling out as well. But I think there's tickets for the rest of them. So yeah, we've done it during the half term, so people can sort of make a night of it, weekend, evening, whatever it might be. But yeah, no, glad you enjoyed it.
So we always end our episodes with a little bit of advice, a little tip to kind of leave viewers with. And you've touched on workload being quite a big problem in teaching, or quite a big issue to try and tackle. Is there any piece of advice you would give a teacher right now to try and tackle their workload, or try and reduce it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that's come along that's had such an immediate impact on reducing workload more than the emerging AI technology that's come around in the past year. I've been just sort of obsessed with it since, even before ChatGPT came along. I was sort of dabbling with the OpenAI AI playground and sort of learning about it. Then obviously ChatGPT came along, which is incredible, and by all means, teachers, have a good play around with that, because that's amazing. And seeing the potential for this, and how it can really sort of streamline certain tasks and do some of the heavy lifting with some of the admin expected of teachers. I've been involved in creating a platform which has harnessed all this language-based AI stuff specifically for teachers, which is teachmateai.com. And there's sort of a suite of over 80 tools on there, where it's just sort of been fine-tuned a little bit more for teachers. And we've been able to sort of feed in the curriculum you're following. So with certain tools, planning tools, it'll reference your curriculum and so on. And the feedback from that's just been incredible as far as saving teachers time.
Yeah,
and that, for me, I think is the most valuable thing. And what drives what's, you know, the why behind why we built TeachMate is seeing our profession with so many teachers struggling. Burnout's a real thing. Workload pressure's massive. Having something that can reduce that a little, it's not going to be the solution to all these issues we're facing, but on average, teachers were finding a saving over 10 hours a week using the platform, which I just think is incredible.
Yeah,
and
it's so valuable.
Saying before about, you know, you being the most valuable resource, those 10 hours can then be reinvested in other ways to help you be the better teacher you want to be. So yeah, I think if you've not yet explored some of the AI stuff, definitely check out the likes of ChatGPT, obviously. But if you want a more focused, and the idea with TeachMate is it's more streamlined, so it's minimal input to get the best possible output. And like I say, over 80. So I introduced it to my Senko recently, and she just texts me all the time going, thank you. You know, done this, and I've just saved it, you know. And I was in school yesterday, and she said that she'd managed to get a whole day's work done by break time that morning through some of the tools, and it's just
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I've had to play about with it, and like it can do everything. It like can create lesson plans, it can create like whole policy documents. Like it literally can save you so much time. So
and we've got some really exciting updates coming as well, which will hopefully take it even further. So yeah, watch this space with that.
Thanks again for watching this episode of Inside Voices. A big, huge thank you to Mr. P, or Lee, for coming on and giving us a little bit of background about yourself. And if there's anything that you want to go and check out that we've spoken about, Lee's tour dates will be, the Mr. P podcast tour dates will be linked below. You can go and check them out. You can go check out TeachMate AI as well. So thanks very much for coming on, Lee.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Cheers.